Hey there, guys. Have you heard about the 19 attorneys general who are trying to limit basic ammunition from the citizens in those particular states? But first, go check out my friends Midwest Gun Works at midwestgunworks.com. Look, these guys offer a full slate of gunsmithing as well as key merchandise, firearms, accessories, ammunition. There's tons of stuff over there. Again, midwestgunworks.com. While you're there, check out the Parts Finder. Parts Finder is going to pop up on your main page when you go there. You can select your make, you can select your model. It's actually pretty cool. It's a neat little function of their website that allows you to really drill down and find exactly what you're looking for. Check them out, midwestgunworks.com, midwestgunworks.com. 19 attorneys general, including Letitia James, the Soros-funded Attorney General from the state of New York. This is the Attorney General, of course, who's behind the whole Trump thing in New York. Gives you a general idea who she is. Plus, she's got a lot of Soros money behind her, as I'm sure these other 19 attorneys general have as well. She, along with these other 18 attorneys general, have submitted a letter to, if you'll remember, the White House, using government money, using your tax dollars, has assembled a new gun violence. We're trying to implement changes to restrict the gun rights of Americans task force, some stupid name that they've put together. Again, using your tax dollars to limit your Second Amendment rights. Yes. So they sent this letter to that chick that the White House put in place to run this new division, this new bureaucracy. The letter states, we write on behalf of, and she names all of the states, including the District of Columbia, which is not a state, by the way, to express concern about recent reports that billions of rounds of military grade, I love the way they keep calling it that, it's just regular ammo, manufactured at the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant have been sold on the commercial market. Here we go. Leading to their use in many of the most tragic mass shootings in recent history. Now, I got to stop you right there. Notice how the commies and the wackos on the left and the gun-grabbing nutbags always say these little keywords, these buzzwords within their sentences. Sometimes they don't say the main word that you're thinking of because they throw a buzzword in there that makes you make assumptions. That's where this phrase, leading to their use, is. That's an implication that because Lake City somehow is making ammunition, it's leading to, quote, mass shootings. Again, read that line again. Leading to their use in many of the most tragic mass shootings in recent history. This is somehow or another making them associated with, quote, mass shootings. It's somehow implying that because Lake City made the ammunition, they must have had a hand in these mass shootings as well, right? It is a perfect example of the current state that we live in as far as no accountability. It's never that person who commits that violent act. It's always somebody else's fault. It's no different than all of these people who commit crimes, but somehow or another who are never held to account because it's the system's fault. So now, instead of us taking and throwing the book at these people who are committing these crimes, we have to trace this all the way back because it's failed suing the firearms manufacturers. Now let's move back a step further and link somehow, as if they had anything to do with it and they're associated with it, mass shootings with the guy making the bullet. They go on to say, we ask your office to conduct an investigation into the contracting processes that led to this situation and to, get this, take action to ensure that military grade and military subsidized ammunition stays out of civilian hands. Interesting. Military grade. A round of ammunition is a round of ammunition. There are likely more civilian use firearms out there that use the 5.56 round than probably military use out there. There's probably way more civilian rounds fired of 5.56 per year than any military use. I would be willing to bet that. With all the gun owners in America,
And with the millions, tens of millions of AR-15s out there, my bet is we probably still, as a civilian unit, fire more of those rounds a year. Because obviously our training, you have way more training involved with the civilian use of these types of normal rifles. These are very popular and very common rifles. And of course, the ammunition is equally popular and equally common. But I have to ask, if this is such a bad thing, the civilian use of a military round, and they're implying that there's no place in the civilian world, as if us civilians are lowly old civilians, then why are they all protected by non-military people using these same rifles that we have and using these same rounds that they're saying don't belong in civilian use? Letitia James is guarded by armed security. She's guarded by armed security that more than likely obtained their rounds somehow down the pipeline that originated at Lake City. She's not military. The people protecting her are not military. They're not funded by the American or the U.S. military. The Pentagon doesn't send personnel or ammunition to guard Letitia James in her penthouse in New York. Moving on with their propaganda, according to recent reports, the ammunition made at Lake City for our military has been sold to civilians in mass quantities. Here we go again, leading to these bullets being used in mass shootings. Again, this is a gaslighting process. This is these 19 AGs trying to pass blame and indirectly put blame on a ammo manufacturing plant because a round of their bullet was used, or a round of their ammunition was used in a, quote, mass shooting. What about the jeans they wore that day? What about the fuel they put in their vehicle? What about the vehicle they drove that day? That was their vehicle of choice. The shoes they wore. What if they wore Nike? Was Nike really the shoe of choice for a mass shooter? It sounds ridiculous because it is ridiculous. And to that point, Lake City rounds have become the, quote, ammunition of choice for use in mass shootings. Here we go again. Propaganda, the ammunition of choice. It's not the fault of Lake City that a nutbag chose their product. They did not market it to them. They did not offer it to them. They didn't offer a discount. They weren't happy when it was used. Hell, they probably didn't even know it was used because this ammo is rebranded by some of these other companies out there, so these people don't even know where it came from. Why they're not, and I'm not asking that they would, but why they're not going after the Winchesters and whomever else who buys that ammunition from Lake City to sell it on the civilian market, I don't know. My guess is they're somehow trying to, since the White House and the, I guess the federal government in the United States have a hand in some of the funding that takes place. It is an Army-run operation at Lake City. This is probably their way to say that since the U.S. government has a hand in the production at Lake City, stop it. So that would essentially cut off that same stream of ammo to some of these other more popular brands that you are aware of, because Lake City does not sell directly to the public. And that's the kind of weird thing here, is that there is no Lake City brand of ammunition out there. So in my simple little brain, you can't blame Lake City, who doesn't market to the civilian populace. Why would you blame them? They're simply selling their ammunition to companies out there who are repackaging it with their name on it, and those people are essentially selling it. So all these people that they mention are not making a conscious choice to actually choose Lake City ammunition. Again, they probably don't know who manufactured the ammunition because it's branded by somebody else. So it's incorrect that these 19 idiots think that people are choosing Lake City made ammunition, because they're not. In fact, they go on to list 4 mass shootings, quote unquote. So you're telling me that when you list 4 shootings over the last 8 years, I'm to believe that it's a problem? Seriously. Now, I'm one of these kind of people that, of course, I'm not, when one person dies, I'm not happy with it. What about all the people who use Lake City ammunition to protect themselves? There are hundreds of thousands of people who use firearms to protect themselves and their families every single year. Do I need to run the numbers on those? You got four accounts that you can attribute, because believe me, if there were more than four, you'd have them on here. So you could only find 4 instances in 8 years where a Lake City manufactured round was used in a, quote, mass shooting. Do you really want me to do the work to show you how many times these rounds are used to protect innocent, law-abiding Americans every single day to offset your stupid little George Soros-funded argument? They go on to state that the shooter in the Buffalo massacre discussed Lake City ammunition as the best barrier penetration ammo I can get, quote, unquote. So let me get this straight. You're going to have to bear with me for a minute on this. So these 19 well-educated people thought it would be a good idea to cite a nutbag who murdered innocent people and who had rantings page upon page upon page in his, quote, manifesto. You are taking his guidance. You are saying that because he stated these things, it must be right. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to say that the Buffalo shooter was a nut job, a racist, and we're supposed to say that everything he said in his manifesto is stupid, idiotic, and crazy, how can you pluck this one thing out of his manifesto and say, except that? It's either one or the other. You either give credibility to everything he says, including the racist rants, along with your little one sentence here about Lake City ammunition being the greatest in the world. You either say that everything he said was correct, including this Lake City, or all the racist rants he said and this one line about Lake City ammunition are all stupid, and you should not believe or hang on a word of any of that. You cannot have your cake and eat it too, sister. It's either one or the other. Do not throw something in my face to try to add credibility to it as being truth whenever you discount 8 gazillion other things that this crazy SOB said. You cannot pluck that out, make that truth, and somehow or another everything else is stupid. I also have to wonder if we are sitting here talking about the things that make things work that the military uses, if somehow or another that's going to become off limits too. Because I'm sure the George Soros funded Letitia James gets to work in her limo or her black Yukon that somebody else is driving for her using fuel that also fuels the vehicles in the military. The food that our soldiers and Marines and airmen and sailors eat, the water they drink, is that off limits too? If we're going to somehow tie the things that make things work as being off limits for civilian use, we got a lot of work to do, sister girl.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's over.